Welcome to the Johnny King Show. I've got an amazing guest in the house, Sean T. Welcome.
Thanks, brother. Glad to be here.
It's not the Sean T that people know from P90X or the.
I don't know.
Do you know who that is?
No, I got a stunt double.
Yeah, he's a ripped black guy that does
All
like
right.
fitness stuff, but he's
big shoes to fill then.
no, it's all good. I saw him speak actually at a at a summit of my buddies, but you're not as black, but you're just as cool.
Cool.
Maybe
you.
not as like military ripped.
Yeah, I'm getting there, man. This
Yeah.
quarantine is doing really well.
Quarantine, yeah. But Sean has an amazing story. He's been a speaker at one of my men's events recently. We met kind of actually at OsteoStrong.
Yeah, through Greg.
Through Greg. And so we both have been kind of rehabilitating some things, him a lot more than me. And it's been pretty crazy to hear his story. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of it, but then also just other things about current events and wherever we want this conversation to go.
Beautiful.
But tell those who may be listening and not know you at all, give them the 30,000 foot view of you.
My life.
Where you came from.
Yeah.
You came from, what you're up to, what you enjoy doing,
Totally.
things like that.
Yeah, I really see myself identify as just like full-blown Coloradan in every way, and I think that's a really useful frame for just most people kind of have a concept of like what Colorado is, what it represents.
Yeah.
I was born and raised here in northern Colorado, in a family of entrepreneurs, and so that kind of just set me on my path to just really prize and cherish all things relating to freedom, family, connection, adventure, outdoor-based lifestyles, always learning who I am and what I'm capable of through how I interact with the people that I love outside. And so that's was pretty much the first 3 decades of my life so far, and I own and operate a few businesses, one in the contracting, construction realm, another beekeeping. Large scale commercial beekeeping business. We have like 40 beehives in northern Colorado where I grew up.
It's crazy.
Also doing like some other just consulting and picked up the term in the last few years, mind expansion consultant is what a few of my clients just kind of labeled on me, and I like it. I ran with it, and because really my life is about anything and everything that expands our capacity to be powerfully, to be ourselves, really authentically, genuinely, hilariously, sexy, like to be just the most vital version of yourself in the world. I stand for that, and I'm a connoisseur of all access to that I can get my hands on, and sharing that with others. So yeah, mind expansion consultant.
I love it. And if you are, whether you're a fan of the show or not, I think you'll be able to see why we connected, because he's taken a lot of the words out of my mouth in terms of what I live for as well. You obviously just have your flavor and your style to doing it. You love to snowboard.
Yeah, that's really my highest art form.
Yeah, it seems like he's, over the wintertime, I'd be like, what are you up to, man? He's like, I'm out there. You were out there almost seems like every single day.
Yeah, I usually get like 50 to 70 days a season.
Crazy.
So
yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's like I said, just something that I have had since like I can remember, and has always just been my most direct access to, like, no matter what's going on, how amazing or catastrophic my relationships are, how thriving or withering my business is, like no matter where I am on the spectrum, I can get on a snowboard and just immediately access just full, vibrant wellness and peace of mind.
That's cool. I think a lot of people probably would say that maybe they're envious of that. They don't have that probably in their lives.
Sure,
How important it is to be able to do that. That's pretty cool that you know what that is and
Totally.
where it's located,
Yeah,
up the hill.
I feel really blessed, and granted, that's not year round, and
Yeah.
so I think that's a really important aspect to just for all people to get clear on is like, where is my flow?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is my art
Mm-hmm.
that brings me online
Yeah.
and fully fires up all the systems, because everyone has something,
Right.
and the most useful map of this territory that I've ever found is a book written by Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler of the Flow Genome Project. It's called Stealing Fire, and they really lay out like what that state of consciousness is, and they call it flow.
Cool. Yep.
And so it's really
Flow
just
state.
like supreme being, and all of the best human beings on the planet are all chasing that same thing. It doesn't matter whether you're like Google engineer, like designing reality in real time digitally,
Yep.
or brilliant like research scientists, neuroscientists, like pushing the boundaries of what we know about human biology and what we're capable of. Elite athletes, obviously, all like elite world-class performing Olympians,
Yep.
to action sports athletes and everywhere in between, football players, everyone. Buddhist monks, like supreme lifelong meditators that are transcending, entering these flow states on demand just because they choose to,
Right.
Without going or doing anything. And even like military operatives, like the whole book starts with like a look into like the life of Navy SEALs,
Oh, interesting.
and how like they just, these individuals become this single mind that's like capable of anything and accomplishing these missions. All of the most elite humans on the planet are all pursuing flow. And we understand what that is now. Neurologically, we understand what's happening in the brain and in the body when you're in that state.
Right.
We understand how to train that and how to access that more than we were just happened to have snowboarding to find that.
Yeah.
Now there's this whole new world of coaching and training available that's how to directly access that. Like, what should you be doing every day so that you can more effortlessly access that state, be in your genius on demand, like tactile genius, flow. And so they have a really cool profile that breaks you out into like what type. So we're flow goers, which is mostly like you find it in sport, you find it in movement, you find it in action,
Adventure,
adrenaline,
Yep.
endorphin fueled highs.
Yeah.
Just puts you in flow. Not everyone has that. A lot of people are like find it through writing, and so you can take this profile on their website. It's super cool, and just see like what category you fit in through a quick questionnaire, and then just have more direct access to understanding what that space is for you and how you get there.
Totally cool. What is that website, just for those listening?
The Flow Genome Project.
FlowGenomeProject.com.
Yeah,
Cool.
just Google Flow Genome Project.
Love it. There's your first takeaway. Homework assignment.
Yeah,
Get it
flow.
done. Yeah.
And just know where that is for you. You probably already know that. You don't need to take a questionnaire for someone to tell you, where you find the best you.
Yeah.
You already know.
Yeah.
It could be with your kids. It could be in your business. It could be running. It could be wherever.
Right.
But hone in on that. And then the questionnaire is cool just because it helps you see it in a broader lens of like, well, that's my style. How can I support that, and how can I flex that muscle more so that I can be in that day in and day out, turn it on, turn it off, and just have this direct access to really powerfully being yourself.
Well, and I feel like a lot of people, they know it, but they forget it. And they get, again, I feel like it's more challenging to tap into, and correct me if I'm wrong, when people are just in survival mode and highly stressed. Which life has definitely been offering a lot of that this year in 2020. But when they get back to it, or just clients that I've worked with, and like, oh yeah, like this is where I was when I was 7 years old, on the pump track on my little BMX bike, and I was just in that, but I forgot that it was even capable of being able to get into that. And I feel like sometimes we lose our way as adults just by doing all the adult things.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the normal, the mainstream world is not built for flow.
Yeah.
It's built for just repetition and monotony and but it's cool actually. One of my favorite aspects of that I takeaways from that book was how, you know, the never-ending peak moments fantasy, like always being in flow, it's a myth. You know, it's actually not healthy. Like I can't spend every minute of every day of my life on my snowboard. That's that's neglecting a lot of the other really important things that I need to be doing. The point is that you know how to bottle it when you're in it, and so that you can take that feeling of just overflowing, vibrant power, and then carry it forward and be with your family. You know, create things in the world, make art, do whatever you need to do to contribute to the planet and the species, and not have to be constantly chasing that, which has got me in trouble before. You know, like I've almost killed myself getting into some seriously short-sighted, addictive, fulfillment states of mind and lifestyles. And so he says in the book, it's cool how the real flow training, it's like seek enlightenment, become enlightened today, do the laundry tomorrow. You know, it's like the Zen saying. And for me, it's like, am I flossing every day? You know, like, am I doing the things day in and day out that are training me to be disciplined, to be really healthy, to be fully taking care of myself, to have my and my family's wellness at the highest priority day in, day out, no matter what. So that as soon as that ability for flow is on the table, I'm in it and I'm crushing. Because you don't rise to the level of your intention, you fall to the real level of your training. And so flossing every day, doing those the monotony of day-to-day life treading across the plateaus of life is actually where it's at, so that when you can access your greatest, it happens effortlessly without even needing to try.
It's funny you say that, because I was having a conversation with one of my best friends maybe 2 nights ago, and we were talking about this, and we've been talking about this a lot. He made a transition in his life when he woke up one morning and his sink was completely full of dishes over the last couple of days. You know, it smelled, and it was like it just set him off on this horrible trajectory for the day, because he had to clean the kitchen and stuff like that. So his now evening ritual is that he will not go to bed until all the dishes are clean, right? And so we were talking about how, especially with all the work that I've been doing with men, it's like it's kind of like a Karate Kid movie. I don't know if you've seen that, plan of it's just Mr. Miyagi saying, paint the fence, wax on, wax off. Make your bed in the morning, make sure that things are clean. And I'm the same way too. I've had guys come over here for barbecues and whatnot as I'm hosting them, and they're like, do you always keep your house this clean? I'm like, generally, yeah. I mean, it looks livable. I mean, I've lived here clearly, but generally speaking, I don't have too much out of sorts, because it would nag at me, you know. And if I had which I've had at times, piles of papers or things like that, and stuff everywhere, it's a reflection of where my mindset is. And then I'm like, I can't get into flow to go write my book until I have everything clean.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So work on that discipline of, again, doing the dishes, you know, making your bed in the morning, doing the little things, flossing at night. That really does. We don't think it makes that big a difference, but it really does, I feel like.
Yeah, it's huge. One of the wisest teachers I've ever had told me that if something takes less than 5 minutes, do it now. Because you always have 5 minutes. Let's be honest. Even if it makes you 5 minutes late, 5 minutes late is always forgivable. So if something takes 5 minutes, you do it now, no matter what. Otherwise, you end up with this pile of 5-minute things that turns into hours. The dishes take 5 minutes. Making your bed takes 5 minutes. Flossing takes 5 minutes. All these things take 5 minutes. And it's really one of the greatest skills I have now is just being disciplined to that. Far from perfect, but a long ways from when I started paying attention to that, and just keeping things clean, keeping myself orderly, being in line with that. And like you said, it makes space. And I think that resilience like just being resilient in life, capable of showing up anywhere, anytime, any circumstances in life, and being able to do whatever needs to be done, rising to the occasion, whether it's monotonous or stressful, urgent or background, just important, getting your life together. No matter where you are, to be resilient, you have to have space in your life. And that doesn't mean like get a bigger yard, get a bigger car, like not that kind of space, but like hard drive space in your operating system.
Bandwidth.
Exactly. Just like you can't be carrying around a bunch of files on your desktop that you don't need anymore, metaphorically speaking, for your nervous system. And so any practices that create space, for me, it's like when I want to get into that place of like, okay, something stressful happened, I'm reflecting on it, seeing I wasn't very resilient in that moment. I wanted to be more capable of showing up than I did. So I immediately go to like, all right, let's do some resilience practice. Like, let's create space in my nervous system. And so I start small, just get into, organizing the desk, organizing my desktop, like literally on my computer, doing the chores, like tidying, maybe even like vacuuming, just create some physical space. And then, when you get into like that cleaning flow, right? And you're pretty soon, like your whole day just turns into you're just like knocking out projects everywhere. It's so good. But it's not always that easy to get into. So I start with the little, just like physical things. It gets your nervous system into that like doing mode. And then I can sit down and really easily start looking at like the actual space in my nervous system of like, what relationships have I been neglecting? What can I clean up with my business partner to create space there so that we can more powerfully interact and get that off the table? What habits like aren't serving me? Like, have I been paying attention to how much Netflix I've been watching? Is there like, where can I create space in those really like the challenging things that are easy to just put off and live with 10 years later, but the really important things. And so I just do some like simple space creation, cleaning, tidying, chores, organizing, whatever, and then I can really get into the true inner space creation. And that's like an hour practice. I do it anytime that I'm like reflecting on my life, seeing that I wasn't as resilient as I wanted to be. And that's kind of my like my paint the fence, wax on, wax off practice for just being resilient in life. You have to create space, and your house looks good, man. You're doing a good job of that.
Thanks. Well, it's easy when you live by yourself and you don't have a whole bunch of munchkins running around like that.
Totally.
So give me another 15 or 20 years and see how I'm doing.
All right, cool. I'll check back in.
We'll do an episode 2 15 years from now.
That's your space creation.
Yeah, exactly. Have you always been, you say like, it seems like you're talking about you've clearly evolved a lot, right? I mean, we always are growing, but sometimes, I mean, people who've kind of stopped growing since 20 years old,
Sure.
And I think going back to the metaphor of like bandwidth or just your operating system, we update our phone's operating systems. Well, now they do them automatically, but probably multiple times a quarter, right? But how often are we actually updating our own operating system as human beings? And I think we're seeing a collective need for upgrading the operating system for everything that's going on with Black Lives Matters and systemic racism, everything else going on in the world right now. But for you personally, did it take the accident, did it take certain things to really force your hand on that? Or what is this more of a family cultural thing that just was kind of inbred in you to want to be always leveling up?
Totally. Definitely did not learn it from my family. My dad is like, you should see his garage. It's a disaster. So, so no, I don't think it was like I was born like this. Definitely not. It's definitely learned. It's cultivated. It's developed. It's practiced, just like every other muscle that we're flexing in our lives. And so, the crash, that you're referring to, definitely, I feel like it wasn't the cause of it by any means. Like I was already working on that discipline and that mastery day in, day out.
Yeah.
But it accelerated it by just creating a massive amount of space in my life. So basically, the short story of what happened was I was wildly addicted to flow, to fulfillment. Like I wanted every day of my life to be about peak performance and elite fulfillment. And my latest iteration of that, I had picked up powered paragliding. Essentially, you have a fan on your back and a two-stroke motor. You can sit in a chair in the clouds, take off from flat ground, and gain elevation at will. And so I've been doing that for about a year. And I was third flight of the day, did not need another one, but had to have it. And wind was picking up, the air temperature was heating up mid-morning, front was blowing in, overshot the landing a couple times, and ended up just totally falling out of flow and put it in the ditch. And it was extreme orthopedic trauma.
You said you hit the ground going
like 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So straight into the ground. And so I died. I was actually telling the story just before I came here. Someone asked me, like, how bad, like, how far away?
Was it? Yeah.
And apparently, I don't remember. I was still like in a coma pretty much in the first week of the hospital. But the Flight for Life pilot came into my room, my ICU room, where I was like critical care on my deathbed, just to meet my family because he heard that I was alive and couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Like had to see it with his own eyes.
Wow.
They're like, this kid survived that. Like, and he's the guy flying me to the hospital.
Yeah.
You have he's got good genes. You have an amazing family. He's probably going to be all right. And if he's alive through that. And so it was, I died. It was a near-death experience. And I had 9 reconstructive surgeries to rebuild my entire lower body and my jaw out of titanium, and was in a wheelchair. Was in the hospital for a month and a half. Was in a wheelchair for 4 months. Basically half a year of just full incapacitation, and then another 3 years since then, just learning how to walk, learning how to dance, learning how to run, learning how to be an athlete, how to snowboard, how to do all the things that I love again. And so, if bandwidth is what gives you access to resilience, I certainly had a lot of space open up.
A lot of time.
It was like, even was like a traumatic head injury, I kind of a lot of my memories were just scattered all over the place. So even my imagination and just my cognitive awareness had a ton of space. So a lot of the things that were taking up all my folders on the desktop before were just like obliterated. Didn't matter anymore. Like I couldn't run a business. My business kept running itself, which was amazing. I was having incredible people running it for me and have promoted them before that. But I couldn't be an athlete. I couldn't be, even like a family person anymore. I needed help getting out of my house.
For sure.
Help getting to the bathroom.
For sure.
And so when you create that level of space, no one should go seeking that. But we're all constantly getting those opportunities to create space in our lives. Maybe not that we chose.
Right.
I chose that in a lot of ways. It was my doing, did it to myself, for myself.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, I didn't see it coming,
No.
And a lot of times, like a divorce, like you don't see that coming, maybe.
No.
The loss of a parent, like a lot of times, or loss of a loved one, best friends. You don't see that coming. And so we always have these opportunities to create space that maybe we weren't anticipating. And so mine was just a particularly massive one with a near-death experience, but it's not like, I don't want people to feel like, oh, crazy, I'm glad I don't have anything like that, and maybe I'll never access that level of flow because I've never had anything like that.
Right.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's accessible to everyone, because part of being human is that you get transitions just dealt to you day in and day out. It could be a virus. Like everyone gets to go through that transition together of quarantine, and whole lifestyles getting wrenches thrown in them.
Creating a ton of time.
Absolutely.
Space.
Yeah. So you talk about these things as like, it's really easy for me to look at that trauma and say, what a disaster. Like fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, why? What were you doing
Yeah.
to yourself? How could you ever do that? And just beat yourself up about it. And this virus, like, oh, this sucks. It was terrible. How could this happen to us? This is the worst thing happened to me. It's so easy to be a victim,
Right.
in those spaces when you didn't choose the transition,
Right.
or weren't anticipating it. But when you can really lean into that and just quit labeling things as good or bad, and
Right.
just call it all useful, and embrace it as an opportunity to grow and learn and create space in your life and become more resilient and understand what you're really capable of when some curveballs come into your life, you always come out the other side of that more playful, more flexible, more capable of just adding value to anyone's life and any situation that you show up in, which, you know, you can rob yourself of that really easily if it's like the victim choice on the menu instead.
Right.
You know,
which is what a lot of times people, I just hear from people, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. We get very, very ingrained in that, like, this is as big as our, you know, hose is, and that's as much flow as we can get into.
Absolutely.
Versus really looking at how we can expand, you know, to take on greater bandwidth, to take on more. And so much of that for me is going along with the saying of, like, less is more. And the more, like, that's like, if you cut out as much distraction, which is, for me, the coronavirus, although challenging times for sure throughout it here and there in moments, but for the most part has been such a gift, you know, just to have time here to start a book and to start a podcast and to, you know, create new programs, and just to be able to pivot into new ways of serving that I don't think I would have done if life were still going on.
Right.
Yeah,
and there's also some people who just like drank their quarantine away. You know, and didn't come out the other side different. So it's totally like, choose to let it happen to you or choose to happen to it. You know, like you're doing. It's absolutely it. Regardless of what you have chosen in the past, if you woke up out of quarantine 3 months later, 20 pounds heavier, and 200 Netflix documentaries or series more complete, fine. Like, so what? Get ready, because the next transition is coming down the pipe right now, and it seems like in 2020, faster than you could even imagine it's going to be here.
For sure.
Like, we can't even remember what life was like 2 weeks ago, because it's so radically different now. And so the main point of that is like, regardless of how well you've met your transitions and grown through them, it doesn't matter. The next one's coming, and you are going to constantly, as a human being on earth, have more and more opportunities to lean into these experiences, to not just coast through them or let them happen to you, and to redesign yourself, like create a new version of you through it, with a podcast and a book and whatever else you want out of it. When you said fiber optic, like the cable is the, you know, like this is the bandwidth of my hose and what can go through there. You know, that's an interesting metaphor for me, because you can definitely take things out of there that didn't need to be in there in the first place, right? You can also upgrade the technology, You know, you can go from cable to fiber optic, in the same size. You're all of a sudden capable of doing 10,000 times more data through there. I don't have any like magic wand to do that with, but I would say, you know, for me, it's really about like mindfulness practices. You know, it's really about just discipline to my morning practice, to every day finding time to start my day taking care of and honoring my hardware, what I'm capable of. So it doesn't matter whether it's your exercise routine, your yoga, your meditation, your breath work, you know, your sexual, like erotic, practice is a huge, like, hardwired into all of us, foundational access to upgrading your hardware. You know, or other, like, it could be your church, it could be your community, it could be your sacrament, your psychedelic, you know, experience. As that like becomes so much more mainstream now, it could be anything for anyone. But just, you know, focusing on upgrading your technology, going from cable to fiber optic.
Yeah.
We have all the tools for that. We
Yeah.
just a lot of times say that we're too busy for it.
Yeah, my thought is if someone's listening to this, like, okay, I get this all theoretically, but again, like, how do I actually put the rubber to the road? How do I actually apply this and grow that capacity? And I think as you're saying that, it's another great metaphor that I always go to is just working out in the gym. You know, like if I want to, let's say, lose some weight and look a little leaner, aesthetically better, let's say, what am I going to do? I'm going to actually change the foods that I'm eating, right? Now, if I actually want to increase that would be like taking your bandwidth and just maybe cleaning out the inside so it flows a little bit faster. If you actually want to increase the bandwidth, the capacity, you actually have to go into the gym and start to lift heavier things, right? So that your muscles actually grow to increase their capacity. And so using that metaphor, I think for anyone that's listening or watching, it's like, okay, there's one thing which we've already talked about, which is getting rid of the distractions, which would also, I think, it's like making your bed, cleaning the dishes. But I also believe it's going back in and doing the work that I've done through either Tony Robbins, PSI here in Denver, MITT out in LA, or Landmark, or a therapist, or just listening to various podcasts. It's healing from past trauma, because that's what's getting in the way, right? And then it's actually challenging yourself to grow, right? Which would be taking risks in your relationship, having conversations about things you don't want to, or have avoided talking about, or taking risks in business, or, you know, with family, spiritually, like you said, all those erotic, whatever aspects of what make you human, you've got to push the envelope, right? I think that increases your capacity. You minimize as much as you can of the distractions, and then from there, man, sky's the limit, because then you can just shoot tons through this open gateway of possibility, and you start to realize, or maybe you don't start. Yes, you start to realize, but then you become even cooler. As I feel like as you age, you get to just be an example, living example of what's possible for humans. And I think that's the thing that I aspire for the most too, is like, if men were actually to heal and get all their shit together and have high EQs, really understand the masculine and feminine, really understand how people work, like what type of men and leaders could we be for the women in our lives, or our brothers, or our children, for future generations. I think that's what fires me up the most. It's like, okay, but it starts with healing.
Yeah.
You know?
Always.
Which kind of sounds like, I mean, from what you've told me multiple times in terms of the story of your accident, it's like it offered you the huge gift of being like, okay, here's not even like a blank slate, but like, here's, like, you kind of refer to it as all the books came off your bookshelf, right? And they're laying all over the floor, and you get to kind of choose which ones, if any, you pick back up and stick back in there, right? Yeah. Expand on that a little bit more, if you don't mind, in terms of like, what did you intentionally choose, whether we're talking about like certain friendships or certain limiting beliefs, maybe. You know, I mean, I don't know if you'd pick up a limiting belief and put it back on the shelf, but what became most aware to you when all the books were on the floor and you were still trying to pick up your memories and put your life together and your body together?
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's like, the immediate books that went back on the shelf were like my family. Yeah. The first thing I opened my eyes in the hospital, they're right there. So like, all right, all those books go back on the shelf. Thank God, I got an amazing family. Yeah. And from there, it was like, okay, who am I? Yeah. Like,
sense of identity.
Yeah, like what makes my identity up? Well, I'm not an athlete right now, but that's really important to me. So I started like kind of putting those books back on the shelf. But
which they told you wasn't going to happen, right? You told me like,
pretty much.
Chances of you snowboarding again was like, good luck.
Yeah, my surgeons were basically like, you should kind of like, not really plan on ever living an extreme lifestyle again, and which is crazy to like set that frame of reference for someone, because I'm better than I've ever been at all of my, climber, snowboarder, mountain bike. So, and that was in a pretty short period of time. But, the cool thing about that is I got to read all the books too. You don't just like, oh, pick that book up, put it on the shelf. It's like, I got to look at like, okay, yeah, I'm an adventure athlete, and how am I doing that?
Yeah.
Like, do I like the way that I wrote this book?
Yeah.
Or am I just super recklessly chasing fulfillment?
Right.
And do I want to maybe tear a couple pages of that out and actually
Right.
rewrite it about, no, this is actually, this is my church. Like, this is a sacred experience for me to really bring respect and composure to this thing that brings me joy and fulfillment and value. And the highest respect I could ever have for that thing is being able to do it forever. And being able to do it forever means sometimes not doing it.
Right.
Like, that means knowing that those first 2 flights of the day for me were enough, and the third one I should have passed on. But that's not how I had written the book. And so that book that fell off the shelf of like, oh, this is part of my identity of I'm an elite athlete in these adrenaline fueled extreme pursuits, got to be edited and kind of looked over. And so that was what, and I started kind of doing that everywhere. Like, who am I as a partner in a relationship? Who am I as a brother in my family? Who am I as a businessman? Like, what do I actually bring to my clients' lives?
Yeah.
And it was really cool. I got to keep a lot of those same things, but just change the way that I was doing them.
Right.
We're I think as a culture, we're quick to, like, we pick up new ways of being and new identities just like we change outfits, man, because we have access to everything. It's crazy. And so we're quick to just like, oh, that relationship's not working, trash it, get a new one. Back to Tinder or whatever. And it's really a missed opportunity, I think, most of the time, to not just like see what else is there, see who you can be differently, because maybe it'll click if you just rewrite that book a little bit.
Totally.
And so as I was putting all those things back on the shelf, it was amazing. I have this painting business, painting and drywall coatings, finish work business is what we do. I've had this business for like 12 years now, paid my way through college doing it. It's just amazing people working for me. Kept running while I was laying on my deathbed in the hospital because of incredible empowered relationships around me. And I got to really look at that of like, all right, what are we actually doing? Are we just painting houses? Are we putting liquid onto walls? Are we just delivering services for money? Like, how simple of a reduction do you want this to be versus how broad of a contribution do you want it to be? Instead, I decided that I want to really be the contractor that's delivering value to people's lives and to people's families as much or more than I am to their structures and to their homes.
Cool.
And so I shifted that into, this is like, I want to take an interest in my clients' children while I'm there, see how I can mentor and support them. I want to take an interest in my clients' their travels, like their art on the walls, and see where they've been, what they are, and support them in telling their story in a more powerful way of who they are, what they've done, what's important to them, how they contribute to the world. So I kind of shifted into that as I started to learn to walk and get out to running my business again. And it's been this monumental change in the quality of my own life, just because I decided that my business was going to serve a different purpose. Same medium to getting there, same paint being exchanged for money, but that's just the shell that's carrying this wealth of value. So I guess that would be, in a nutshell, the takeaway for me is like, you don't have to change the relationship. You don't have to get a new job or change your business or like burn these things down to make space to create new things. You can infiltrate the most foundational structures in your life and redesign them. Like, decide actually what is the purpose of like the real humanitarian, powerful, compassionate value that gets delivered through your construction or your tech or your nannying, whatever business yours is. You don't have to burn the books in the library. You can kind of just edit them and rewrite them a little bit.
Well, and it seems like that really caters to your gift, because again, being similar in nature, I feel like I'm always looking at how I can like wring the most juice out of every experience, and to take a business that on the outside could be like, okay, cool. You actually infusing your gift, which is like, I want to find out what's the story behind that painting. You know, what's like, tell me about your kids. It's like that really does cater to your gift, which I think, again, if anyone's listening, can extract maybe a takeaway from this, which is like, first you got to really figure out yourself and what your gifts are, and then seeing how that you can infuse that into the methodology or the service that you might be providing, even if you're just doing, you know, customer service at a call center. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but you can bring your gifts, your unique gifts to the table. And if you don't know what those are, I'd say start taking personality profile assessments, you know, is one way that I found, you know, and I started taking so many of them, I started seeing the overlaps and be like, okay, yeah, I love people. I love adventures. I love learning. I'm like, okay, what would this look like? And I, you know, the business that I'm in right now is ultimately cultivating those things, because it's a give and take, because in that place where I'm most fulfilled, I bring the best version of myself, which guys like to experience, you know, in events that we're doing, and just the bonding and the brotherhood, I guess. And I think that from there just goes for, you know, creating memories and things that are of value.
Yeah.
You know, beyond just a transaction.
Right. Yeah. The personality profiles is a cool way to get there. I haven't done a lot of that, and so maybe that's an opportunity for me to like really see into those those systems for like seeing your gifts more.
Yeah.
For me, it's just really like, what makes you feel good.
Correct.
Like, that is the ultimate guide for what your gifts are. Like, if you are expressing your gifts and tapped into your unique value, you're gonna feel good.
Yeah.
And you know what those things are. You might not have done it in a while, but you maybe do it every day. Yeah. You know, and so, and if it's just like, oh well, being with people makes me happy, or being with my kids makes me happy. It's like, well, what is it about that?
Correct.
You know, like, what is
curiosity.
It, you know, the inquisitiveness of learning about them? Is it some type of contribution that you like to make to people? Is it just sheerly the pure just connection with people, regardless of how much is shared or exchanged? So if you can really like, what makes me feel good, and then get super specific on like the actual details of what that thing is.
Correct.
Then that's the ultimate personality profile, you know, to tell yourself about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. To look back on your own experience and be like, when have I been most happy? And when am I just, when does time fly?
Right.
You know, I think that's a really good way of looking at it, because I think sometimes people, you know, I've had people say to me like, well, not everyone can follow their passion and, you know, make a living doing it. You're just one of the lucky ones, you know, like, I gotta stay in this dead end job and just to pay the bills because I got mouths to feed. And I'm like, I totally get it. That I don't know what it's like to be you, and we definitely come from different upbringings and everything else. However, I certainly believe in everyone's freedom and resourcefulness to literally create whatever they want. And I think a lot of that goes back to exactly that. Like, if you just love playing an instrument, or you love playing video games or whatever, like, but what is it below the actual thing that you're doing that you really enjoy, you know? And I think that goes back to your analogy there, where it's like you were picking up the books and then kind of rereading them, like, but why was this book even on the shelf in the first place?
Exactly.
And do I like all of it? And if not, then maybe there's chapters I pull out because they're not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
Rip them out, you know,
or maybe you like donate it, put it in that little box on your neighbor's front yard, or those little community neighborhoods, you know, just like donate it.
Yeah.
And I got to do that with a lot of relationships that would never curse any of them, would never regret any of the relationships, friendships that got me to where I was, but also just got to see really clearly like who showed up and who didn't in the darkest hour of my life. And you can check that out any day in your life, like who's showing up and who's not. And those people who aren't showing up, is it maybe just because they're too busy? You should take on the responsibility to doubling down on that and seeing how they show up in return. And if it does feel exhausted at some point, then you can, you know, lovingly say thank you for all the contributions you've made to my life up to this point, and, you know, donate that book. So.
Well, and I think we talked about right before we started, before I hit record, is that like a lot of it for me is I just have to be, and it's another way of saying exactly what you're still saying, is like, there's certain things that literally suck the life out of me. and there's things that totally breathe life into me.
Right.
Sitting behind my computer, I'm working on, funnels, sales funnels for landing pages and copywriting. I'm like, like, can I do it? Sure. Was I a graphic design major? Yes.
Oh, nice.
But I don't, like, that's not the type of art that I want to do. I'd rather be drawing on my iPad. I'd rather be painting. I'd rather be, doing some other type of creating, like in my business, or I just love the art of coaching, because when I'm talking to someone, I don't even know where this conversation is going.
Right.
But it's kind of cool to like weave in and out of, and like, oh, I can extract that, and I'm curious about that, and to me that is an art flow as well. And I think that's the important thing for people to listen to, is to find what it is that breathes life into you, or what takes it out of you, and you should avoid as much as you can the things that suck life out of you, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no question. I agree with that. I mean, whenever you feel good, you're in flow.
Yeah.
I love that we have that shared experience.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's about an hour yet? It's been 3 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're at, because we both enjoy this so much,
Yeah.
and there's no agenda, there's no idea. It's just this spontaneous kind of, playing catch. And I really appreciate that, and I think that everyone has their own version of that.
Yeah.
Where they just are like nothing else exists.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing what you love, you're enjoying doing it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a new thing that you suck at, but you still enjoy doing it. Like that was me in rock climbing and mountain biking and some of the things that I love. And but I hope that the world caters to that. I hope that we, I'm not saying like, oh, I hope that's done for us, because remember, we're the ones designing the world.
Correct.
Like, the 8 billion of us collectively are doing this.
Correct.
And so I hope that we can all see the value in that. And the more that we encourage the people in our lives or the people in our companies or our coworkers or our whoever, parents, to just take some time to like, I'll cover this. You should really like go do something that lights you up, that makes you happy, that you'd love. The more we encourage that for other people, the more it will be encouraged for us.
For sure.
And the more we can just design a world where we thrive, because everyone is making sure that their neighbor is taking time to tap in, to flow, to just feeling good, feeling optimized, and one day at a time in that realm. But I think we need it more than ever right now. And I think that it starts just with choosing it for ourselves and encouraging it for the people in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. I couldn't think of a better way to put a bow on this conversation than that. If people wanted to follow you, be in touch with you, where would they be able to connect, if any?
Yeah, I need to do a better job of that. I'm not really much on social media. You can find me, I guess, on Facebook.
Or maybe just in real life. In the mountains.
That's the way. Is that's the missed opportunity of not really caring about social media. What are the chances we're just going to find each other on a mountainside somewhere? But we can choose to meet on that mountainside somewhere if we're connected digitally. And so I see that my complacency around just being enamored with the physical experience of life and kind of disregarding the digital experience of it is also a missed opportunity for connection. And so my Facebook, I'm on there all the time. I just don't really broadcast much. Is Sean, SEANTTI. Might be easier to find just with the like after facebook.com/dreaming the life.
There you go.
A lot of people are living the dream, but I think it's a little more a little more charming to dream your own life. Like choose really what is the life, the dream that you want to live. It's dreaming the life. And if we have anything in common, if we have any capacity to, I could learn from you, you could learn from me, or you're passionate about doing the same things to access flow that I am, or any of the books or recommendations that we've talked about, make a difference for you would just love to be connected. Like the bigger the family, the better,
Right.
in my opinion. And it's, man, never ending how many incredible people there are to connect with.
If they love honey.
Yeah, exactly. If you need some honey in your life, I've got
He's your
I think
honey bear.
It's modestly, humbly, some of the most incredible honey on earth.
Yeah.
So
I've had a little bit at that place that we got to drink. Where was that? Down in
honey.
It's called Honey.
Honey.
Easy
it was
enough.
an amazing elixir bar my friends owned down there, and Honey
Those-
in Rhino. It's opening
Things
again. I think this week or next week they're going to reopen finally.
Good.
So
Good. Life somewhat coming back to some sense of normalcy.
yeah, we're getting there, and also, was normal that great to begin with?
No.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, are we coming back to something that was okay?
Right.
Or are we moving forward into something that's outrageous and profound and fulfilling and where everyone's taken care of?
Yeah. Amen.
We got a lot of work to do, but I think we're on our way.
Amen. We can save that for the next episode.
Yeah, no doubt.
Otherwise, we could talk for hours.
Cool.
Thank you again
thank you for having me, brother.
hanging.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
We appreciate it. You bet.
Look forward to hearing what else you're putting out here with your new podcast. Man. Stoked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, appreciate you listening. And like I said, always feel free to hit me up with feedback or reach out to Sean and say, hey, if you're ever passing through Colorado, hit either of us up and we'll take you for an adventure. So, till next time, take care.